Hello, and welcome to the Soul Shaking Love podcast, dedicated to bringing you the top mind, body, and spirit experts, as well as relationship experts, to help you find that deep soul shaking connection with yourself and with your true love. And today, I'm Coach Valerie Green, of course. And today I am thrilled to be interviewing dating, sex, and relationship expert Wendy Newman. Hello, Wendy.
Hi, Valerie. Hello, everybody.
It is so great to be here because I loved reading Wendy's book 121 First Dates. Not 101. Although I remember you saying you started out with the title 101 before you met your partner, Dave. So that is just such a brilliant story, because if you hadn't stuck in the game long enough, then you probably wouldn't have met him. And nobody wants to stick in the game for 121 first dates.
Nobody does. Nobody wants that.
Right, exactly.
I would love to just clear the air right now and say I never, ever meant to go on 121 first dates. In fact, when I had just became single after a divorce, I think I had gone on 2 dates, and a girlfriend of mine, she was significantly older, about 20 years older than me. And she was telling me about how she was going to do 25 dates, just 1 date each, wasn't going to say yes to a second date, but she was going to do 25 to get to know men in the world. And I thought, that is the biggest waste of your time. Why would you ever go on 25 dates? It's just too excessive. I thought for sure I'd go on like 4. And then obviously I'm amazing. I'm a relationship expert. I'm a man expert. I got this like nailed. It's going to take me 5 minutes. I'm going to be single for 5 minutes and 4 dates. And yeah,
Exactly.
21 first dates later, here I am. Yay.
Exactly. And I love that you said that, because when you got back out to dating again, it was when you already had studied so much about men. You were already working for Alison Armstrong, I believe, at that point. And so you knew, and you were already teaching workshops about how women could relate to men. And so you knew how attraction worked. You knew about how to create healthy love, and, what makes men and women get along. And so it's not the knowledge that makes you meet your partner. It's whatever it is, right? And sometimes you have to have that tenacity to just keep putting one foot in front of the other until you meet him. And that is what your book is about. I like how in your bio you share that it's part juicy tell-all, part anti-rules dating guide, because you share all the rules and then you share how you kind of had to break the rules in order to meet your partner.
That's right. And I very much lived my life around best practices instead of rules, because the rule is broken and someone's in trouble, right? Best practices is like, oops, I fell short of my best practice. Okay, well, and maybe my best practice doesn't fit here. Maybe I have very specific things I thought I needed, but now that I'm sitting in front of this one and how he's showing up or how they're showing up, she's showing up, it's like, oh, I'm seeing things in them that I didn't even know I needed. There they are right there. So you've got to have room for grace in there.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I mean, I want to ask you about that. So then how do you know, let's say you write your list, because I know you teach women to write their list of what they need and then also what they want. And then, make sure you know the difference between the two so that you're not settling, because you need to have all your needs met. And then how do you navigate sitting in front of somebody and you're not sure if he has what you need, but maybe it feels right? How do you know?
Well, you keep dating to see if what you need shows up or if it truly is missing. And then you need to make some decisions about that. What else has shown up in the package of this person in front of you? And is it worth the trade for the thing that you thought you wanted? Right.
Right.
I would like to just clear the air about something right now, which is, I know that people are probably thinking, why did it take her 121 first dates? That's excessive, especially since that she was a relationship expert for her day job during the whole process. Like, how is that even a thing? Right. And I can tell you exactly why it took so long and how you don't have to have it take that long for you if you don't want to. So
Please.
there were, right. So there were two things going on. The first thing is, one thing I've learned from my day job is people don't change. People do not change. And the very most common ways for women to get into a relationship is we pick on potential and we're like, oh, that
Mm-hmm.
person's amazing. I love that person. Although, oh God, the way they dress is horrible. So I'm gonna have to change that. And then also, oh, that habit that they have, the way they do that thing with their jaw after they've eaten. It's really weird. I'm gonna change that. And also, he interrupts me a lot. Got to change that. So we start making a list of things that we need to change about the person, and
Mm-hmm.
hoping that they really do get the career that they talked about, that they're not quite there yet. Right.
Right.
So we pick on not fully accepting the person as is. And so
Mm-hmm.
one of the two reasons it took me 121 first dates is I decided very early on, I was not picking on potential, that he had to be fully formed and exactly how I needed him to be without any changes being made whatsoever. And that alone, that standalone was a toughie,
Mm-hmm.
because there just were things just like, I don't know, I'd want to change that. Right. And there probably were men out there that would let me change them. And I don't want to do that. It's
Right.
not amazing.
Right.
Right. That the end game on that is not amazing. So the other thing that had me take so long, and this goes right to the heart of what you were talking about my list, is I had a list and I have a whole system of making the list and then whittling it down and doing all the things. And I did that. I did it over a very long period of time. And my full list was 4.5 pages long, like front to back, right?
Amazing.
Short type, right? Small font. And it's not the length of your list that's a problem. Some people might say, aren't you being too picky? It's not the length of your list. What is the problem is you might have one item on your list that crosses out a different item on your list. Like if you got one, you couldn't find that other thing in the same person. Right? It'd be like saying, I want a woman who is a size 0, but likes to hang out with me and the guys on the weekend and eat pizza and drink beer. Like that size 0 woman exists who can drink beer and eat pizza every weekend. She's very rare.
Right. 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 Exactly.
maybe the 1 or 2%, right? Very rare. Is your dating pool is very small, right? So I had two qualities on my list that canceled each other out. What I was looking for was a man who was bigger than me, stronger than me, who could take care of me, who I'd feel very safe and protected with. That just would calm down my inner animal, right? And then the other thing that I required was someone who gave me a lot of freedom and autonomy and treated me like an equal.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same
Exactly.
person. Those are two different men. And
I mean, you can find those in the same man, but it's very rare. Like you're
1%,
saying, right?
1%, right?
Exactly.
They're out there.
I mean, I'd
Very
say that
small.
my husband is definitely that man, but I
Yeah.
mean, he is a unicorn.
Yeah. And it's a unicorn. So I knew that going in. Luckily, I already knew that I had qualities that canceled out other qualities for the most part, but that I was willing to write it out. And a way
Hmm.
to not go on 121 dates is pick one. What is more important?
Yes.
Bigger, stronger, or freedom and autonomy? Which one? Pick. And if I had picked,
Yes.
would have happened much sooner. But I'm really glad that I didn't pick sooner. And I'm really glad I held out for 121. It was worth it. And I would do it all again. I'd do 242 to get to him if I needed to. So yeah.
I absolutely love that because what I hear you saying is if you are a deep person, which I know I am, and a lot of my audiences, and you are as well, you're not going to be compatible with most people.
That's right.
The right partner for you is going to have both of those contradictions on the list in whatever ways he has, but most people won't. And so most people do the serial monogamy thing where they just find somebody who has well enough, he makes me feel good enough, and they settle. and then they don't necessarily write that entire list beforehand and find the depth of like, actually, I want a man who's ambitious in the world, who's up to big things, who's really um good at his job, who's so passionate, and when he comes home, he's going to make time for me and meet my emotional needs and ask how my day was and give me empathy and validation and help me in my emotional healing journey. And, it's like, yes, that's also my husband, but like, I would think there's most people out there.
Yeah. Yeah. The killing it at work and putting the family first, two different men usually. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a very common one. Very, very common.
Right. And so if that's what you want, then you either have to get more specific about wants versus needs and what do you really need to be happy,
Yeah.
or you need to wait it out and not settle and say no to everybody who doesn't have that. And then you might have to go on 121 first dates, but then it's
So
worth it.
yeah, totally worth it. So it's like the gym, right? Like you don't like going to the gym, but the after effects are pretty great if you're consistent. So,
Exactly.
you don't go because you love it there. I mean, some people do, but not me. So
Yeah, totally.
I have a question for you. How many guys, when you were dating, did you think like, how many guys did it take in order for you to find one that you were like, oh, maybe, yeah, that could be a fit? Like, one in 5, 1 in 7, 1 in 10? Do you
That's
know?
a really good question. I mean, I was a little different because I was more like, I didn't even give a guy the time of day unless I already predetermined that he had, oh my God, all those qualities.
Wow.
Um, and so I didn't go on that many dates. But I mean, maybe 40, in my adult life. But I would say though that I did tell myself I was too picky.
Mm,
Um, and that was the main thing that I had to get over
mhm.
because I wasn't willing to settle. And with my first husband, I learned a lot because I didn't think I was settling, but that's before I really knew that I needed a man with more masculine energy. And my ex-husband and I are still really good friends. And because he didn't choose to embody the archetype that I wanted, and nor should he. Like we're saying, like we're not here to change people.
Yeah.
So when I decided I wanted what I wanted, I talked to a lot of men. I was very picky. I said hello to a lot of men. I had first conversations with a lot of men. I met men in person. I met men through friends. I met men at parties, and I would have a lot of 30-minute conversations with them where I would just disqualify them because I was too picky.
So great.
So it was more like I was between when I got divorced and when I got married again, it was about 10 years.
Mhm.
And through that process, I had been dating the entire 10 years. I didn't go on that many first dates, maybe like 30 or 40. But it was like by the time they got to the first date, they had already been so pre-qualified by me because I'm so
Yeah.
picky.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it might have been the same amount of time that passed for me,
Yeah.
as that passed for
Yep.
you.
That
But
it
like
was. Yeah.
I did not, I'm applying the same mindset that you're talking about. I was not willing to settle.
Yep. Yeah. And mine was 10 years too. So my journey in terms of the timeline was after my divorce, or as we were separating, I immediately fell in with somebody who was also going through a divorce. He had my eye on me and he took one look at me and thought, ooh, there's my rebound.
Right.
Right. He's doing,
Okay.
so we were both in the divorce tunnel, right? And so we just meant to have a fling. He came on strong. He was real cute. I said, yes. He was British. Why not? Right. But it ended up being a 1.5 year relationship and him trying to drag me back to England with him. But that was not sorting at all.
Mhm,
And in fact,
mhm,
I knew from the moment I opened my door to him that we had no future. We were fundamentally, as cute as he was, we were fundamentally not a match. And
mhm,
that was fine. And it was a 1.5 years of my life. And when he went back to England, I started dating. And number 4, same thing. I lived in a very small town. I lived in Sonoma, California. Everybody knows everybody, within 10 minutes of the U-Haul driving up. So I already knew him. He was already a friend of mine. We fell into a tryst that lasted 4.5 years on and off. And I knew from the day one was no future.
mhm.
And during that time, I thought, after that end of that relationship, I thought, could you stop burning the daylight in your life, Wendy, and like actually sort appropriately instead of just falling over the cute when walking through your door right now. Like, knock it off. It's time to actually sort out what you're truly looking for. And that's when I got serious. And the first one burned a year and a half, the second one burned 4+ years, and in those last 3.5 years is when I got very serious and did date 5 through 121. And I was on a mission to only be serious about somebody who actually was qualified for the job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of us time. I mean, I had my own share of rebounds as well, to be able to even get our needs met and tell what we want. And so I have no judgment about women or men that stay in relationships that they know aren't the one to, um, for many, many reasons, also because you do enjoy this person and you give and receive a lot of wonderful things together. Although ultimately, if we want our partner, then we do have to be more strategic. And although that's not fun.
Yeah.
So I guess my
And
question is like,
I'm
what?
I'm super sex positive. I'm down for a hookup, but you also have to be really, really mindful about how much time that is sucking away from your opportunity to really connect with somebody. And when we are getting sexually satisfied out on our own time, right? By our friend with benefits, when we do that, it does, for me personally, I noticed that I wasn't as hungry when I was out in the world. So I'm sure I didn't show up fully my full zesty self on dates because I was satiated, right? That's fine. It's good. Yeah. But I
Right,
didn't
right,
show up
exactly.
like open and available and connected to other people all the time either. I bet I'm just from an energetic standpoint, which makes me really mad to have to say that because I'm all about like, go do what you want. But I think that it can get in the way sometimes. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of those questions that I think we have to be really honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
Because while I was single too, I had a relationship with a man that I knew wasn't long term, and I feel like it did help me to feel filled up and develop more authentic connections with the men I dated. But then maybe it didn't. Maybe it was exactly what you just said, which is
Maybe.
that it filled me up enough so that I didn't show my real authentic self or give guys a chance because my heart was taken. Like, today, I don't really know the answer. Like, would I have met my current husband sooner if I didn't have relationships with men that I knew weren't him? Right. So I think that's the main question for women to ask themselves. Like, if you're going to choose to have a relationship with a man that you know isn't it, to get your needs met while you continue dating, does that allow you to get your needs filled up so that you are more available to the men that or less available to the men that you're meeting? And if it's the latter, then it's important to really take a look at that.
Yeah. And I think that part of my strategy was not beneficial to myself, which was I saw my people a couple of times a week. It would be like dating almost them. So
Right.
so
And
my
then
hot strategy tip is once every 3 weeks, right? Like be hungry.
no, totally, because I mean, from a purely time standpoint,
Yeah.
you need your time to be available to meet people who have what you want instead of spending time with someone who doesn't. And it's not, there's no shoulds or make wrongs, right? It's
Right.
all about whatever helps you to access your intuition, in my opinion.
Yeah, and your person's going to show up when they show up, right? So there's not like, oh, did I already blow it when I did? No, no, you didn't blow it. Your person's not here yet. That's it. And
Exactly.
there isn't skill to it. There's not amount, this is not a linear process, which is really a bummer. We're used to getting really good at things. We have facility in our jobs. We're great at what we do. We got our education, and there was this like linear movement to get to the goal. And in this realm, there's not
Nope.
one thing linear about it. Like the more you know, doesn't matter. The more like,
Yep.
I mean, clarity in what you're looking for is very useful, but short of that, you're just on your journey. It's going to happen when it happens.
Right, exactly. And so let's talk about then what we can do so that we don't burn out while we're in this process. Because I know you talk about nurturing yourself with like baths and buying yourself flowers, and also nurturing your emotions with self-compassion along the way. And so, what are the top things that helped you to stay not burnt out and, at least fulfilled enough to keep going?
Well, I had places to put my love. So I mean, a person with a dog, you're set, right? So I had my snuggle buddy, right? And that really made a lot of difference for me. I think, that was probably my number one saving grace was I had an animal. I had a therapy animal.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's
And
no joke.
yeah, and I also when it got really bad and I wanted to quit, it just on the real rough times, I always had friends to reach out to hold the space while I just unloaded the whole experience on them. And one of the best pieces of advice my friend Robert gave me is he said, look, I can tell right now, you need to stop dating because like give yourself 3 weeks. You're a hot mess. I wouldn't want to be with you right now. Like the last three guys you went out with that you've been complaining about, it's not them. It's totally you. You're crispy burnt
Mm-hmm.
out. So he said, why don't you go do something linear and something that you can win at? I don't know,
Right.
sew a pencil skirt or do a puzzle, bake something. I don't care what you do, but go do something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end so you can feel like you completed something. Because the
Right.
cycle that you're in is just rough. You're not completing anything that you want to complete.
Yeah. And then how did you know that you were feeling more complete so that you can get back out there?
The the pull to adventure, the inner
Yes.
pull, and your intuition is like the thing that you want to lean on the hardest. It's what I leaned on the hardest for knowing when to
Mhm.
stop, knowing what. Well, I had to be told when to stop, but knowing when it
Yes.
was time to go back on is that that pull, that call to adventure again, and getting back out there. Just listening to my body and spirit.
Yes.
Yeah,
You said the pole, but I know you also used the pole.
the pull. But yeah, oh yes, I did.
And
Yes,
I
I
mean,
used to pole
I
dance in this very body that I'm in right now.
yes, oh totally. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure that you're very sensual and beautiful when you're on the
yeah,
pole.
yeah. It was fun. It was.
Um,
I
I
would.
mean,
I would.
I know a lot. I mean, I don't think that Sheila Kelly's studio is open anymore, but I used to recommend that people take S Factor classes to get, because it's not about performance, it's about getting in touch with your sensuality.
No,
And I
and
think
people
that
used to ask
that's
me
so
like,
important.
why do you do that? And I feel like the three archetypes that we want to be tapping into are our sense of playfulness, right? The temptress, and then there's kind of that mothering energy, that nurturing energy, and then there's also the third energy that I like to tap into, which is more like the queenly energy of vision, right? And when I got to dance on a pole, I got to tap into all three of those. Obviously, the temptress playful is right there to see, right? But I felt very nurtured, like I was taking care of my body when I'm hanging,
Mhm.
15 feet in the air upside down. It just felt very nurturing to my body. And
It
then
is.
and then being high up, that elevated 15 feet in the air upside down had me have a broader vision. It tapped into all three aspects of femininity that really nurtured me. And I'm not saying that the pole is for everybody, but if you can find something that gives you that bang for your buck on all three aspects, tap that. Tap into.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. I mean, any kind of sensuality practice, any kind of um feminine meditation, I like to tap into. I mean, there's so many different ways to access our own internal sensuality, self-love. I feel like that's what we're going for, because if you're just giving, 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 then that's what burns us out. So
Yeah.
I love that you talk about that. And I know in your book you have a list of different things that you've um, used. So if women want to get your book, then they can read that. And um, so I guess my main question is just um, I want to talk about this paradox of sorting and staying in the game and not settling for somebody who doesn't have what you need. But then
Yep.
again, I know that when you finally met your partner, Dave, that he told you that if you read through his whole profile with a sorting lens, that you never would have met with him because he said he didn't have what you were looking for in his profile. And yet you somehow missed that, which is probably your unconscious guiding you towards him. And so how would you explain that paradox?
So it is the weirdest thing because OkCupid does not screw up very often with their algorithms. I had put a distance limit of 15 miles, and I was living a lot further than that from him. He was in San Jose, and I think at the time I was in Oakland. This is way further than 15 miles.
Right.
So he shouldn't have showed up in the first place. On his picture, it is him playing keyboards, but you're only looking at the back of his head. Now, he is a newly divorcing man who had been single all of 7 seconds and had never been online before. And it, like, the profile showed, right? But
Totally.
there, so I didn't even get to see his actual face, right? And when I read his profile at the time I was 45 and he was 47. And at the time I was dating somebody who was 35. I like older. Going with someone that's 10 years younger than me doesn't work for me. And as I was laying in bed reading profiles and doing what I was doing and sorting and all the things, right, like we do with the scrolling, my intuition saw his profile and said, you need to be dating him. You need to be dating the 47-year-old, not the 37-year-old. It was 37. He was 37. And I was like, okay. So I started reading, right? And I'm like, no picture. But I started reading, and I was like, really guided. I was really guided. I don't know how else to say it. I wasn't drunk, promise. Not like nothing like that. And I was guided, and I reached out to him like I always do to anyone I'm interested in. I reach out with a, hi, you look like an interesting person out there. And out of the 25 million people on the site, hi, I'm here. And if you want to reach back, then come get me. Right. I don't say it like that, but that's the tone of it. Right.
Right.
So he reached back and we went on a date, and that was all great. But as we started dating and as we started to get to know each other, we were talking about something, and he said, yeah, I don't understand how we even got together in the first place. If you read my profile, we wouldn't be dating. And I said, what are you talking? Of course I read your profile. I reached out to you. And he said, it's a mystery to me. Let me show you something. And he whipped open his phone and he looked up his old profile and he shoved it in my face. Not one of you out there would have responded to his profile. It basically said, newly dating, looking for fun after a long-term marriage. And the goddess, God, the universe just had me screen it out. They were like, nope, we're going to send you further away. We're going to have kismet happen through the internet. We're going to get you two together. And we have to be tricky about it. I said, no, you're at San Francisco. He said, no, I said I would be moving to San Francisco. Look, it says San Jose. Wrong distance, wrong profile, wrong intention for dating. I was not casual. Was not
right. After 120 dates, you
was
were not casual.
Was not casual anymore. And I would have missed out. It literally is one of my biggest miracles. I don't know how it happened. And and I do remember the feeling. I do remember I hate talking about it like this because I feel like if you're not a spiritual person, you're rolling your eyes over there. But I really do remember the feeling of that's your guy. And I've had, that's not the only time that's ever happened to me. I've had you need to talk to that one or try this, right? Like we've had these messages before and usually for good reasons, right? So I'm just really grateful that the filters were broken that day.
Yes.
Somehow my higher power scanned out all the words and had me get into action and type.
Exactly. And I love that concept because it so speaks to the paradox that love actually is. Because yes, we have to sometimes when we get that intuitive hit, it's our unconscious programming about what we haven't healed that feels familiar. And sometimes when we get that unconscious hit, it's actually our intuition telling us, don't listen to your head, listen to your heart.
Yeah,
And the
we're
only way
guiding
to
you here.
tell
Yeah, we are guiding
is,
you here, so get on board.
exactly. And like the only way to tell is to, be really mindful and authentic. And is that my intuition? Or does it feel uplifting? Does it feel hopeful? Or does it feel addictive and erratic, like my, patterns?
Yeah,
And it sounds like for you, it just felt hopeful and hey, I'm supposed to reach out to this guy, and you did.
yeah, yep.
And I think that that really speaks to um, that you were balancing your heart and your head and your intuition equally throughout the whole process, because your head makes the screening and sorting decisions, and your head's the one that tells you the right questions to ask, to tell if he has what you're looking for. But then your heart is the one that allows you to really be authentic and to, show up as those feminine archetypes that you just mentioned, and in addition to your body, right? But then your intuition is kind of the combination of all of that. It's like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but it feels right.
Yeah, and you just want to also watch out for the superficial things that we screen out for. Like I was living in San Francisco and I've lived in Oakland, and I'm just a city person. And so I have that bougie, snotty city person vibe. I'm not going to date somebody from San Jose suburbs. No, like
Exactly.
I would have missed my partner.
Right,
Right.
right, totally. Like
So,
because and that's really important, which in my mind is why it's important to slow down and have mindfulness and say, is that voice actually my intuition or is that my judgment? And that's
yeah,
something that I can be more open-minded about.
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And
Are
by
there
the way,
any
get together,
Mhm.
they move out of the suburbs and into your city. So it all works out anyway. So to get what you want, even if you.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I just love um how entertaining you are along the way. That's there's another question that I wanted to ask, because in the first anecdote that you share, um you say a quote like, now you're on a date with somebody else, and you're like, now the task at hand is to figure out how to keep this initial attraction moving in a positive direction. I know, I'll be really entertaining. And you are extremely entertaining, by the way.
Thank you. It's a crush. It's what I lean on. If I don't get
Yes.
to be super skinny, I'll be funny instead. How's that? I'll tell good stories.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I mean, obviously, that's really wonderful when you do. And I wanted to just ask, once you do meet the guy that you sense is the right one for you, what is it that creates that authentic attraction besides just being entertaining?
Well, the thing is I think one of the most important lessons I learned partway in is I do really lean on my accommodation and humor and storytelling to get things rolling. And so I would get there and I would like start the show, right? And I would also make sure and maintain that the conversation was going in two directions. I wasn't just dominating, but I really felt that it was my job to show up and like fully be present and be there and be out there. And then I realized you're working too hard at this. They are not efforting over there. They're not working that hard. So I calmed down a little bit, started being a little more casual. And I would notice when I started, like there were times on the date that I started feeling tired because, I was on display and I was on and it was exhausting, especially if they weren't that great of a date. And so one of the best gifts I ever gave myself, instead of wondering, how am I doing with him? Am I winning him over yet? Like instead of that, I shifted to, how am I feeling? How am I
Mhm.
feeling on this date? Let me grab my iced tea, just like kick back, right? Have a little sip and then let them generate for a while, let them entertain, let them
Exactly.
pick up the ball and do some hard lifting over there. So I don't have to be exhausted from every date. And that
Totally.
was just a balance. There were some dates where I hardly talked at all. And there were some dates where I did a whole lot of talking, and I always shot for somewhere in the middle, right? But yeah, paying more attention to how I felt around him really, really
Exactly.
changed everything for me. And it made dating a lot better.
I
And
love
it also made deciding if I wanted to give him a second date a lot easier. Because if I wasn't feeling like my best self, if he wasn't bringing out the best of me, why would I say yes to another one?
exactly. And I love that shift. And you do describe that shift throughout the book. Um, because I do think that a lot of us are used to being in our masculine energy and trying to win the guy over. And obviously, we have to show up and participate, right? It's not just about interpreting this advice to lean back as being passive.
Yeah.
It's about really
Throwing
showing
throwing
up,
your sets, ponytail, just go. No.
right? Right. I mean, there's like I feel like there's such good advice out there that then is taken to the extreme, and then the right thing is to be balanced. And so obviously, yeah, we have to show up and be our authentic selves, but it's so much more important to lean back as well and ask, how am I feeling around him? It's not my job to win him over. It's actually his job to show himself to me and to see if he's making me feel the way I want to be feeling with a man.
That's right. That's right.
And so I'm glad that you talk about that shift in your book. And the your journey along the way so that you help other women to short shorten their own process for how to find their right partner. And obviously, you do a good job about talking about this book is not just for women, it's for men too. And that all of the gender polarities out there can learn a lot from your stories and anecdotes and distinctions, although you talk a lot about obviously your woman dating, you know,
Yeah.
men. Um,
It's
but
only for men who want to know what women think. It's not for all men. I have a 5-star review on Amazon, and I've got one-star review that says this book is for women. I
well,
think
yes,
it was a pink and red cover with a big
yes,
heart on it.
yes. I
Thought I
definitely
was
think
writing that
that's
for you, sir. Sorry.
not a surprise, right? But no, I agree. You really do a good job of sharing your inner dialogue in there and then your mistakes. Um, I mean, so I guess, yeah, we can just end with the question, or of course, you can share any stories that you want and or examples. But like, what would you say is the biggest piece of advice you have for women that are in the dating game and okay, they're willing to stick it out and they're willing to balance their heart with their head and all of that, but they just feel frustrated that they haven't met their guy yet.
Yeah. The best piece of advice I have is incredibly simple. And that is get started, which can be hard. Get started. Don't settle. Don't stop. That's it. That's all it is. Get started, don't settle, don't stop. And if you need more inspiration, I know we've been talking about my book, but my book does have 28 short stories of actual 28 of the 121.
Yes.
They're not the boring ones.
Nope.
They're the exciting ones. So if you're feeling like you just had a terrible date, that book could be a great comfort to you because you can read other women having really terrible dates too. And you
Yes.
can remember that you never have to have that specific date again. There'll be other dates, other opportunities for all kinds of feelings, bad and good. So that is one thing to do, is to find the people and the activities like massage and the things like a book and the pets and all of the ways that you can brush yourself off so you can be shiny new to get out there again for the next one. And just don't stop until you get your heart's desire.
Mhm.
Being single is totally valid. Like if you're happy single, you rock it. Many of the women I talk to are looking for their partner. And
Right.
if you're looking for your partner, you can't stop till you get there, and don't settle along the way. Unless you're going to very intentionally settle when you've got those two things that conflict and you're like, I'm not waiting 121 dates to get I'm just going to pick bigger, stronger. I don't need so much autonomy or whatever the thing is, right? Maybe he doesn't need to be a C-suite guy at Apple. Maybe he, right? Maybe he
No,
could
of
be a middle
course.
management guy and then be around for the family, right? So you could pick, but that's not settling. That's
Right.
understanding the reality of your lifestyle.
Exactly. I feel like that's just doing the deeper work to clarify, was that a want or was that a need?
Yeah.
Because it's a need if you can't live without it, but it's a want if you're like, okay, I could still live without that if he has everything else. And I would have to work out how to get that need met in another way.
Hey, I
Like,
have something for your viewers, but I kind of want to give them something. I know that my assistant gave you a link to something, but I want to give them something else.
okay,
Can I do that?
sure.
Based on this conversation, what we've been talking about all this whole time is about sorting. And I have this really delightful sorting tool. And there's a big free hunk of it that I want you to have that'll start to lay the foundation for you to understand and really distinguish wants, desires, and your own instincts. Because our instincts, it's really important to listen to your animalistic instincts. It's definitely
Mhm.
important. You don't want to override them, but you also want to rein them in when they're trying to run the show over petty stuff that doesn't matter.
Right, right.
So I want to give a free gift around sorting, and I'm going to give you the link so you can put it wherever you put it.
Great. Yeah.
Does that work?
Please. Yeah. I mean, I will put the link to that below this video. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like what it's called and
Yeah, it's called Partner Have to Haves, and it's
oh,
really going
nice.
to help you understand what happens in the very beginning of meeting and all the lustiness and excitement and how you can start to sort when your head is not in the game.
Exactly.
It's,
Because what
it's in the clouds.
right, exactly. Because what tends to happen is we just get carried away in chemistry.
Yeah.
And then I agree, it's really important to have already clarified what it is that you need beforehand so that you're able to then see if he has it, because otherwise it doesn't matter. Like once you're in love, if your friends and family are like, he's not ready for you, you don't listen at that point. So it's important
Yeah,
to
you got to get it
have,
early.
right, to have clarified that before you get swept off your feet kind of thing. So yes,
Somewhere
that would be
around three
wonderful.
months later, you're like, oh, I see. But finally, the rose colored glasses are coming off. Right. Okay.
Right, but by then you're already attached and you've already fantasized about the wedding and the future together, and then you're
Right.
too hurt to think about
And
losing it. So it's
oh God, you're
important.
gonna have to date again.
Right. And like it's so horrible when you're already having feelings for someone who is meeting a lot of your needs to imagine giving that up and then having nothing again, which is why it's so important to have girlfriends and support systems and pets and ways of contacting your sensuality and accessing self-compassion and self-care, which I know you
And
talk
ready
about as
access
well.
to that list to go, oh, shoot, this is like key. This is man, that is a deal breaker must have. Okay. And he doesn't have it. Okay. Like having that in writing for yourself is immensely helpful.
Exactly. And I mean, I do, of course, and I'm sure you do talk about how to talk about that, but there's just some things that you just know. He
Yeah.
doesn't have that, even if he says he does.
Yep.
And then it's important to really have that intuition because it's so hard once we're already attached to really access our intuition, which is why it helps to have tools like your free gift that helps you
That's right.
have that list in front of you.
Yep.
So
Well, thank you,
thank you.
Valerie. Yeah.
I feel like this has just been a wonderful, informative exploration of just how to get in the game, how to stay in the game, and how to not give up, and then what you really should be looking for so that you make sure that you have what you need. And so I'm thrilled to be sharing your free gift with our audience so that women can prepare for this journey of a lifetime. If you're already on it, then it'll help you stay with it. And if you haven't started, maybe it'll give you the motivation to get in the game. And if you've already met your partner, then it's wonderful that you could share this with other people who might need this inspiration.
Sounds good. And remember, if ever you're thinking, is it me? No, dating is not for the meek. It's hard. So sorry. And it's worth doing.
Yep, it's worth it, right? It's
Yeah.
like that's, when my clients always ask me like, "Oh my God, that's a lot of work." And I'm like, "It is a lot of work." The question is what makes it worth it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Lots of
And
things
it's
in life. There's a lot of work to it. It's true.
exactly. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't trade my husband for anything in the world, and I'm sure you wouldn't trade your partner for anything in the world. And
Nope. Nope, I would not. We just had our
that's
10-year anniversary. Yay, us. Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.